All right, folks, thanks for tuning in today. As you may know, because I spoke about it yesterday, today we're going to be using some of the sanders and shapers, and I also have an orbital spindle sander across the room that we're going to use as well. We're going to talk about what these tools do, how to use them safely, and even a little bit about tool maintenance today. We are going to be working on our arms and our legs that we've kind of been working on over the last few videos. Then we are going to pretty much wrap those up today. Not quite, but for now we'll put them aside after today. And we're going to talk about some other pieces after that. But let's get this day kicked off here. So this is our portable sanding, or not portable, it's our sanding station. We have a belt sander here. Direction of travel for this belt is going to be down. There's a little sign here. It says rotation, and the arrow points down, which is great because you don't want this pointing up. If this was rotating the opposite direction, going upwards, every time you try and sand something, it would get lifted off the table, pulled up, and then you'd slap it back down and just be a horrible mess. We don't want that. This one here is a big disc sander, and you can see it's about a 12-inch disc. And what this does is this rotates towards myself, just like that. It also has a rotation sticker on it, and that's important to know. Like I said, with the belt here, if it was rotating up, all it would do is lift your piece up and you would have a bunch of chatter on the table. This is important because you can make a choice with this one. You can choose where on this table you want to work. We have the full width of this disc to work with, and this can present some problems. If we work on the upward side of the disc as it rotates, you're going to see it's going to rotate this way. If this is rotating and you're trying to sand some material, it's going to lift it. And it's going to come around here and it's going to slam down, and if your fingers are underneath it, that can be a bad time. So this side's going to lift. We don't want to work really on the right of center here with this disc. We want to work on the downward side of the disc. That may be on the test, hint, hint. So downward side is where we want to work, because that's going to be very similar to the bandsaw. The bandsaw spins in a downward motion, holding our material to the table. This concept is very similar. We can't have a kick in any way, especially a kick up, if we're working on the downward side of it. If we're tempting fate, we're trying to work on the upward side of the disc, that is going to be just a whole bunch of mayhem, and I might even demonstrate that in a little bit here. But I'm just going over the anatomy of this for now. So we have a nice workspace here. We have a couple grooves cut in the table, machined in. Those are for miter gauges, so you can work across the length of the table and use that gauge to keep wood 90 degrees to this, or we have one here where we can work wood into the sanding disc here and keep it nice and square. I don't use these very often at all. I use this tool as little as possible. It can be used that way, but there are other ways of doing things that may be a little better. This tool is ideal for shaping outside corners. So what it does really well is shapes outside corners. And when we take a look at some of the pieces we've worked on, say this piece we cut out yesterday, this arm, this is a whole big outside curve. This machine will handily take care of that and make that nice for us. As you may not be able to see because this camera doesn't pick up great detail, but no, you won't be able to see it. There is a bunch of cut marks and lines. We want to get rid of those. We want to sand them up nice. We can also sand tighter corners like this one here. This one, we can round that over nice. We can round this one over nice and just make a really nice overall product with it. It will not work on inside curves. So you do not want to try inside curves on this. If you do, you're going to have to work on the edge of the blade or the edge of the sanding disc and then around. And can you do it? Yes. Should you? No. Here's why. Because when you're doing that, you're causing a lot of wear on the outside, very outside edge of this belt. And that's not a good thing. These belts, they're a bonded fabric. So they're fabric-based, got some glue, some grit, a bit of paper in there. They're not that tough. And if we get a tiny tear in that outside edge, this whole thing will shred right apart, and that's a waste of a belt. So we don't want to do outside or inside curves like that. We do have a tool that works great for inside curves, and we're going to talk about that after this little bit of the demo here. So with this, when we're working with material, we need to use these tables. So they're here for a reason. We want to keep things nice and flat against them because this back sanding disc is set 90 degrees to this table. That is going to give us a nice square finish on our work when we're done with it. We don't want to hold it at an angle, especially with the back down, because the front's up and this is just going to slap off the table. And you know, if your fingers are there, it could be a pinch point. If this is really low, it might catch you in the waist or something like that as it comes up. It could hurt you on your side, or if you're standing a little differently, maybe in places you don't want to get hurt. But we just need to be aware of what we're doing here. This is a very easy tool to use, but we need to know a few things about it, and that's what I'm working on right now with you guys. So with this disc here, we don't want to sand in the middle all the time either. I keep saying disc, it's a belt. We don't want to sand in the middle all the time either. If we wear that center section out, just like working on an edge, it's going to tear, it's going to split, it's going to be no good for anybody. So when we work on this, we work across the whole face here. And it's about a 6-inch face, so we can work across the whole thing and use all of this evenly to try and sand our material. It promotes longer life of your sanding belt, and it also does a more efficient job of sanding because you got lots more surface area. It's taking away more material. As long as we're not pressing in super hard, we don't really need to press on this. We just hold it firmly against this and let this do the work. You don't need to be pushing it in. This will do it just fine. When we push in on something like this, we create extra resistance and stress on the electrical motor. Now this electrical motor drives both of these discs, this one here and this belt here. So since they're hooked to one motor, if we have two people both working on here and pushing material in pretty hard, it's gonna be a lot of extra stress that we don't need on that motor. So I like to have only one person work on this at a time, be it on the belt side or the disc side. Only one person should be working on it at a time. So that is that. These discs, this one here is fairly clean. I just cleaned this one recently. This was also just cleaned recently, but then I used it. So we can see all this kind of lighter material here. That's all sawdust. In between those little grains are grit that is on the sanding paper. So what we do is we take this thing here. This is just a big old chunk of rubber. It's like an eraser. And what we do is we run this across the sanding belt. And it's going to help remove all those bits of sawdust and unwanted junk in there. That's going to give us longer life for our belt as well. So there's a bunch of things we can do to really help make these things go the extra distance here. These are cheap. They're not expensive at all. And they're definitely worthwhile to have if you have a shop where you're using large pieces of sanding equipment. Is it only for these? No, it can be used on pretty much any sanding equipment, any power sanding equipment anyways. The thickness planer, not thickness planer, thickness sander that I ran the panels through the other day. We can clean those sanding bits in there as well. That's something I will do because I don't want you guys in a machine, especially while it's on and rotating. That is something that I do, and I don't even do it around you guys. I wait till everyone's gone just so there's no possibility of incidents, and I do it then. The spindle sander, which we're going to talk about in a bit, we can use this on it as well and clean up that spindle. But I'm going to show you guys how this works. It's just a big old eraser. We're going to turn this on here. Pretty simple. Green for go, red for stop. Safety glasses are required. Things like rings, I'm going to take those off. Watch can stay on. It's nice and tight, but definitely not rings. So we're going to turn this on here, and I'm going to run this across the face of this, and we're going to clean it up. And you guys should be able to see a pretty nice difference. Also, when we run these, we want to run the dust collector. This creates a lot of fine dust, and there's lots of spaces in here for it to get caught. If we don't remove all that dust and it gets plugged up and we turn this on, well, this is going to create friction. Friction is heat, and we got heat, and that fine dust is going to be fuel. All we need is a source of ignition and a little bit of oxygen, and we got ourselves a fire, which we don't want to have. So we're always going to run this with the dust collector on. So that's on now, and we're going to start, turn this on. We're going to work across the face, clean that up a little bit. So you guys can see quite the difference there. I've only done half of it, and already you can see it's quite different. So now that we've got that cleaned up and prepared, what I'm going to do now is I am going to sand these outside curves here, get them all nice and clean, smooth, fix any little inconsistencies in my cuts, like I got a little one right here. I fix that one, round these corners off, flatten this out here. Then we're going to go over to the orbital sander, and we're going to work on the inside curve. But for now, let's work on the outside curve. So let's fire this back up. So there, what we have is some nicely rounded corners on the top. Those look pretty nice. All these edges are nice and round. There's no saw marks anymore. We flattened that out here as well. So it looks pretty good overall. And I'm pretty happy with it. So we're gonna quickly take care of the outside corners on here. This is a seat leg D. We're going to take care of the bottom here, make sure that's nice and flat. All these sections on the top, we're going to flatten all these out by just pushing straight into the belt. So when it comes to these ones, we're just going to go straight into the belt, straight into the belt, straight into the belt. The reason for that is this is where our seat slats go, and we need flat surfaces for those seat slats to attach to. So let's take care of that, then we'll move over to the spindle sander, and we'll get that rolling. So with this one, guys, we rounded this off. It all starts with good cuts. I'm gonna start by saying that. Get used to working with the bandsaw. So when we get back in the class, hopefully we can try it out. I know a few of you guys had the opportunity to, but yeah, basically I cut on just on the outside of my line. We went over that yesterday. That was one of the quiz questions yesterday, and I hope you guys got it right. But cutting on the outside of the line, cut nice and close, and you don't have to spend a whole lot of time sanding. It only took me a couple minutes to sand this. I do need to sand the inside here and the inside of this curve. We're going to go over to a tool that is more, well, it is designed for sanding inside curves, and that's the orbital spindle sander. And we're going to go over to that right now. We're going to take you guys for a walk. So this tool right here is the sander I'm talking about. This one here has got a nice big table surface to work on, so we can work on bigger pieces. There we go. And what this does is this is a spindle. It's a small drum wrapped in sandpaper. These are interchangeable. We have numerous different sizes. This is a big one. We have smaller ones, for example. And the important thing with this is you kind of want to match the diameter of your spindle as close as you can to the diameter of your cut. So if you have something like a great big inside curve like this one, you would want to use as big a spindle as you have. It's going to stop it from digging in. These small ones, if you use a small spindle on a big curve, there's a good chance you could bite in and dig and create an inconsistency in that nice curve cut you have. But by going to a bigger one, and I wish we had one slightly larger than this, but this is what we have. So this is what I'm going to use. This will do a great job. We just have to be aware not to pause too long in one spot, because that's going to basically cut into the edge of our piece and sand out a groove that we don't like. And every time we go over to try and fix it, it's just going to make it worse. So the best thing with these is always be moving. And what I do is this is going to rotate counterclockwise. So it's going to put force on our wood, and it's going to want to take our wood and send it, kind of out to the one side. It would be my right. You guys might see this as your left. So we need to hold our wood down firmly and apply a little bit of force and when we move it against here. And that is just to ensure that it doesn't get grabbed by this spindle here and then shot off the table. That wouldn't be a good thing. I'm going to put this little guy back. And we're going to start doing some work with this. So there's a gap here. There is normally a throat insert that goes in here. But with this bigger spindle, we can't use the throat insert. The gap is not very big, so I'm not overly concerned about it, but we need to be aware. We can't be sticking our fingers in there, stuff like that. Any service to this is going to be done with the power off, and that's including changing spindles. So power off there, and if you're changing spindles, unplug it. That's just a good safety measure. And don't just drop the cord on the floor. Put the plug hanging up in front of you, so when you're working on this, that you can physically see that plug at all times. Somebody can't go, oh, hey, this is unplugged. Plug it in, and say you've bumped that green button and it kicks on. That isn't something we want to have happen. So if you are servicing it for any reason, changing a spindle, unplug it, please. We're not going to be changing a spindle, though. What I'm going to do is do a bit of work on this. So we're going to turn this on, and it's going to be fairly quiet. It's going to rotate round and round and up and down. The reason for that is we don't want to wear out one groove on this spindle here. It would just be a waste of, well, money and material in general. So this thing comes up and down, and what that does is creates more of a wear surface on sandpaper, which is a great thing. We can also take this out, take it apart, and then flip this entire drum on the spindle, so we get double the use of it. And this is going to be helpful because we want to extend the life of everything as long as possible. If you were running a small business, you wouldn't want to have to replace this every time you use it. So you want to be more cost efficient. And that's one of the ways that this machine extends the life of this. And we can also use that rubber pad on it. In fact, I'm going to grab that little rubber pad. We're going to clean this up, and then we're going to start our work. Everything okay?
I don't know where to plug it in.
All right, so I've got that sanding block here, and we're quickly going to fire this up, clean this up, and then start our sanding. So as you guys can see there, it's rotating around and around and up and down, which is great. So we're just going to take this and just like that, we got that cleaned up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on these inside curves. So I'm going to place it flat on here, 2 hands, and I'm going to work from right to left. I'm going to feed this into there, holding it securely so it doesn't shoot off if it gets grabbed by the spindle. So just like that, I'm hoping we can get some detail, and we're not going to get detail, it doesn't seem like. We've taken a rough cut surface, and it's all smooth. Looks great, and it's going to be you know, another step towards a good looking end product. So these tools, super helpful, super useful, way faster than doing it by hand. And yeah, it's awesome. So we're going to do this big radius here. It's only going to take us a moment to do that. And that's how long it takes. Inside here, there's no more saw marks, or only sand marks. We will need to take a little bit of sandpaper to the edges, but we're not going to worry about that because we actually have to router these edges, and I'll show you guys that when we get to that part. For the most part, though, we are pretty much done for today. What I'm going to do here is we're just going to take care of this inside curve here that I haven't addressed yet, and we'll see if it shows. It's a little rough, but there's a big notch up here I don't like. There's lots of different cut marks in the teeth. We're gonna, no, those will disappear just right quick, and that's what I love about this machine. It takes a lot of the work out of it. So this is one of those instances where we develop technology to aid in production, to reduce overall cost and time invested. It's part of a, I think I would call a smart business model. If we had to sand all these by hand, yes, it would be satisfying to do so and to know that you've been able to do it. And it's always nice to look at a project and go, I built that entirely by hand. But you're going to spend a ton of time on it. If we're doing these for production, or we want to build more than one, say 4 for around a fire pit, you want to be able to expedite the process a little bit, just make things go a little quicker. Yeah, and that's fine, Brian, you can go do that. So we're going to use this. Once I've got this done, we're going to wrap up the video. I'll open up, actually the quiz is going to be open for you guys already. And yeah, that'll be it for today. But next class after that, we're going to talk about some of the information on the templates. We'll transfer some information, talk about pairs, how we keep things in pairs, how to keep ourselves organized when moving forward with a whole bunch of pieces. So we'll get this cut or sanded, then we'll wrap up here. And just like that, folks, that is sanded. So that's nice. All right, so thank you for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate it, guys and girls, sorry. Yeah, this is just another step on the way to a chair. So we're gonna do a little bit more work with these. We'll set them aside, then we'll make a whole bunch of other parts. And at the end, once we have a bunch of our parts ready, we're gonna talk about routering, assembly, we gotta talk pilot holes versus countersink. There's a whole bunch of things we're gonna be getting into. So there's gonna be lots of information coming your way in the next while, but we're gonna break it down to chunks, nice manageable pieces. So hopefully we can take a little bit from each day and expand our base of knowledge so that when you guys say take construction 20, you aren't going, Mr. Lawrence, what do I do? What do I do? Hopefully you guys can retain some of the stuff and you know, take it going or use it going forward. So once again, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great lunch because that's coming up real quick here. And I will see you all tomorrow. So make sure you drop your names in the chat. I need everybody in here. I got 13 people in right now. So I want to see at least 13 names in the chat. If you are here and you're not dropping your name in the chat, we got to get used to doing that. That is my attendance. That's how that happens. Every day I'm getting a couple emails saying, Mr. Scott, I was there, but I didn't. Okay, let's make it a habit. As soon as you pop in, type your name in, enter, then it's done. You don't have to worry about it. So let's take care of that, please. I'm going to wrap this video up. I'm going to turn off the camera, turn off the mic. I will be here for the next 15 minutes for you guys, though. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I'll answer them that way, or send me an email, whatever you want. Okay, thank you, guys.